The grocery store buzzed with Thanksgiving cheer, laughter, clinking carts, and holiday songs echoing through the aisles. But amid the noise, a small, trembling voice pierced through it all. A little boy tugged his father's sleeve and whispered, "Dad, that lady can't buy her Thanksgiving meal." His father, a man who owned half the city, turned his gaze, and in that instant the world seemed to stop. The air inside the grocery store was alive with warmth and chatter. Thanksgiving Eve, a time when everyone rushed to grab last-minute ingredients for the feast. The aisles glowed under the soft golden lights, laughter mixed with the sound of shopping carts rolling over the polished floor. Amid the cheerful chaos, Jonathan Hale walked beside his 8-year-old son, Eli, their cart filled with the best Thanksgiving treats money could buy. Cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie, a golden brown turkey wrapped neatly in plastic. Jonathan was a man of presence. Tailored coat, confident stride, a familiar face in every business magazine. But tonight he wasn't the CEO of Hale Enterprises. He was just a father. "Dad, can we get the chocolate pie too?" Eli asked, eyes sparkling. Jonathan smiled. "Of course, buddy. It's Thanksgiving and we can get two." They laughed, turning into the frozen food aisle. But as they did, Eli's laughter faded. His bright eyes shifted to a few feet away, where a young woman stood at the checkout counter. Her hands trembled as she counted coins from her worn purse. Her cart was almost empty. A loaf of bread, a carton of milk, a can of beans. The cashier looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, ma'am, the total's still over. You'll need to take something off." The woman, Sarah Miller, her name stitched faintly on her worn uniform, gave a small nod. "It's okay. Take the turkey off." Her voice cracked. Jonathan glanced at her, something stirring inside him. Her clothes were thin for the weather, her shoes scuffed from overuse. But it wasn't her poverty that hit him. It was the way she tried to smile for her daughter. A little girl stood beside her, maybe 6 years old, clutching a tiny stuffed rabbit. She looked up and whispered, "Mommy, can't we have turkey this year?" Sarah bent down, brushing her daughter's hair gently. "We'll still have a nice dinner, sweetheart. It's not about the food. It's about being thankful." Eli's little hand tugged at his father's sleeve. His voice came out barely above a whisper. "Dad, that lady can't buy her Thanksgiving meal." Jonathan froze. Those words echoed in his mind louder than the store's music. He looked at his son, small, innocent, pure-hearted, then at Sarah, who lowered her eyes and gathered her few groceries, walking slowly toward the exit. In that brief moment, Jonathan felt something he hadn't in years, a pang deep in his chest that money couldn't silence. He'd built empires, bought companies, and donated checks by the thousands. But here, in this simple store aisle, his child had just shown him what true gratitude and compassion really looked like. He turned back to Eli, who was still staring at the door. "Dad," Eli said softly, "we should help her. Thanksgiving's about giving, right?" Jonathan knelt beside his son, placing a hand on his shoulder. A faint smile formed on his lips, filled with both pride and realization. "You're right, Eli," he said quietly. "You're absolutely right." And that's when the spark was lit. A moment of pure humanity, born from a child's simple heart and a father's awakening soul. Jonathan and Eli stood by the checkout counter, the noise of the busy store fading behind the thudding of Jonathan's heart. Sarah and her daughter were gone now. The automatic doors had closed behind them, leaving a faint gust of cold November air in their wake. But Jonathan couldn't shake the image, the woman's trembling hands, her brave smile for her daughter, and the way Eli's small voice had broken through his well-built armor of success and routine. He exhaled slowly. "Stay here, buddy," he said, handing Eli the shopping cart. "I'll be right back." Eli's eyes lit up. "Are you going to help her, Dad?" Jonathan didn't answer, but his smile said enough. He turned and hurried toward the exit, weaving through the crowds of holiday shoppers. The motion sensors triggered the doors open again, and a cold breeze hit his face, crisp, biting, and real. Outside, under the dim glow of the parking lot lights, he spotted them. Sarah was kneeling beside her old sedan, trying to buckle her daughter into a torn car seat. Her grocery bag sat beside her, half-filled, the loaf of bread visible through the thin plastic. Jonathan hesitated for a moment. How do you approach a stranger without making them feel small? He took a breath and walked forward. "Excuse me," he said gently. Sarah turned, startled. Oh, hi, did I drop something? Jonathan shook his head. No, nothing like that. I just... He paused, trying to find the right words. I was behind you in line. My son noticed you had to put the turkey back. I was wondering if you'd let me help. Her eyes widened slightly, embarrassment washing over her face. Oh, that's kind, but really, you don't have to. We'll be okay. She smiled, though her voice wavered. Jonathan could see her pride, the quiet dignity of someone used to doing everything alone. He softened his tone. I understand, he said, but I insist. It's Thanksgiving. No family should go without a meal, especially not one as brave as yours. Sarah blinked, her lips parting as if to speak, but before she could, the little girl in the back seat, Lily, and leaned forward and asked, Mommy, who's he? Jonathan crouched down to her level. Hi, Lily. I'm just someone who wants to make sure you and your mom have the best Thanksgiving dinner ever. Lily smiled shyly. Really? He nodded. Really? Sarah's eyes glistened, tears threatening to fall as she finally nodded. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. Jonathan smiled warmly. Wait right here. He jogged back inside, filled with a renewed energy. Not the kind that comes from ambition, but from purpose. He filled another cart with everything she couldn't afford. A turkey, pies, vegetables, even a small chocolate cake. At the checkout, Eli ran up beside him, grinning from ear to ear. Dad, are we giving it to her? Jonathan nodded, his voice thick with emotion. We are, son. As they walked out carrying the bags together, Eli said quietly, I think this is what Thanksgiving really means. Jonathan looked down at his son, heart swelling with pride. Yes, he whispered, smiling faintly. It is. And in that moment, under the pale parking lot lights, the CEO who had built empires realized that true wealth wasn't in what he owned. It was in what he gave. The cold evening air carried the scent of pine trees and the distant hum of car engines as Jonathan and Eli approached Sarah's car again, their arms full of grocery bags brimming with food, warmth, and quiet love. Sarah stood there, still looking uncertain, her hand resting protectively on the car door. Her daughter Lily peeked through the back window, her curious eyes wide and shining like little stars. Jonathan smiled as he set the first bag on the hood of her car. We thought you could use a little help getting ready for Thanksgiving, he said gently. I may have gone overboard, but didn't want you to miss anything. Sarah's lips parted in disbelief as she saw what he'd brought. A golden turkey, boxes of stuffing, cranberry sauce, fresh vegetables, even a pumpkin pie. Her eyes flicked up to him, unsure what to say. Mr. she began softly. Jonathan, he replied, smiling. Just Jonathan. Jonathan, she repeated as if memorizing the name. You really didn't have to do all this. I didn't even know how I was going to explain it to Lily. You have no idea what this means. Eli stepped forward, clutching a small box of chocolates. My dad says food tastes better when it's shared, he said earnestly, holding it out to Lily. This is for you. Lily's face lit up like a candle. She reached for it with both hands, her giggle breaking the heaviness in the air. Thank you, she said, her voice bright and pure. Sarah pressed a hand to her chest, overcome by the kindness unfolding before her. You both have such good hearts, she whispered, her voice trembling. Jonathan shook his head lightly. It's not about that. I just think the world could use more moments like this. When my wife passed a few years ago, I promised I'd never forget what it felt like to need someone and not know how to ask. Sarah froze, her breath catching. I'm so sorry, she murmured. He gave a small, understanding smile. Don't be. She was the kindest person I ever knew. She used to say, kindness doesn't need to be earned, it just needs to be given. For a long moment, silence filled the space between them. Not the kind that's empty, but the kind that's full of unspoken gratitude and connection. Finally, Sarah wiped her eyes and said softly, You didn't just give us a meal, Jonathan. You gave us hope. He felt something shift in his chest, a warmth that no business success had ever given him. Maybe you gave us hope too, he said quietly. You reminded my son, and me, what this day is really about. Lily tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mommy, can they come to dinner too? Sarah blushed, caught off guard. Jonathan chuckled warmly. That's very sweet, Lily, but maybe we'll see each other again soon. Sarah smiled through her tears. I'd like that. As Jonathan and Eli walked back toward their car, snowflakes began to drift gently from the night sky. Soft, slow, and peaceful. Eli looked up at his father, his small voice breaking the quiet. "Dad, I think Mom would have liked what we did today." Jonathan swallowed hard, his throat tight. "Yeah," he said softly. "I think she would have loved it." And for the first time in a long while, Jonathan felt her presence, not in memory, but in the warmth of his son's hand and the smile of a stranger whose life had just changed forever. The next morning, sunlight poured softly through Sarah's small kitchen window. The air was filled with the smell of roasted turkey, cinnamon, and freshly baked bread, a symphony of warmth she hadn't felt in years. The kitchen table, once bare and silent, now gleamed with life, plates, silverware, steaming dishes, and the laughter of her little girl. Lily ran around excitedly, her small hands trying to set the table just right. "Mommy, is this where the turkey goes?" she asked, holding a floral plate in both hands. Sarah smiled, her eyes glistening. "Yes, sweetheart, right in the middle. It's perfect." As she placed the last dish, she paused, looking at the feast before her. A table overflowing with food she hadn't dreamed of affording just a day ago. Her throat tightened. Gratitude washed over her like a wave. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, God." "And thank you, Jonathan." There was a knock on the door. Sarah turned, surprised. When she opened it, the sight nearly made her heart stop. Jonathan and Eli stood there smiling shyly, holding a basket of fresh bread and a small bouquet of flowers. "I hope we're not intruding," Jonathan said warmly. "Eli insisted we bring dessert." Sarah's eyes widened. "You came back?" Eli grinned. "We wanted to make sure the turkey didn't get lonely." Sarah laughed, a sound she hadn't heard from herself in far too long. "Please, come in. You're just in time." The four of them gathered around the small wooden table. It wasn't fancy, but it was alive with warmth, the kind that only hearts, not money, could create. As they sat, Lily bowed her head suddenly. "Can we pray, Mommy?" Sarah hesitated for a second, then nodded. "Of course." With her little hands clasped, Lily began softly, "Dear God, thank you for the turkey, the food, and for my new friends." Jonathan's eyes glistened. He looked down at Eli, who was quietly nodding along. Sarah's heart swelled. For once, silence didn't mean emptiness. It meant peace. As they ate, laughter filled the room. Lily talked about school. Eli shared his favorite Thanksgiving memories. And Jonathan and Sarah exchanged stories. Two strangers who, by a twist of fate, had found comfort in one another's kindness. Halfway through dinner, Sarah excused herself for a moment. She stepped into the small living room and looked at the photo on her mantel, a picture of her late husband holding baby Lily. "I wish you could see this," she whispered, tears glimmering. "We're okay, because of them." When she turned back, Jonathan was standing in the doorway, watching quietly. "He'd be proud of you," he said softly. She smiled, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You think so?" "I know so." The two stood there for a moment, not as a CEO and a single mother, but as two people who understood loss, love, and second chances. That night, under the soft glow of a single candle, they all shared pumpkin pie. Four souls who, by pure chance, found family in each other. And outside, the first snow of Thanksgiving began to fall, pure, silent, and full of promise. The next morning dawned crisp and golden, the kind of quiet after Thanksgiving that felt peaceful, yet full of meaning. Sarah stood by her small window, coffee cup in hand, watching Lily play with Eli in the yard. Their laughter echoed, light, free, and pure. For the first time in a long time, her heart didn't ache with worry. It fluttered with hope. A soft knock pulled her from her thoughts. When she opened the door, Jonathan stood there again, this time in a dark overcoat, his breath visible in the morning chill. In his hands was a white envelope and a gentle smile. "Good morning, Sarah," he greeted. "I didn't mean to interrupt your peace. You're always welcome here," she said warmly. "Would you like to come in?" He shook his head. "Just for a minute. I wanted to give you something." He handed her the envelope. Confused, she looked at it, her name written neatly across the front in blue ink. She hesitated, then slowly opened it. Inside was a letter on thick paper, embossed with the logo of Harper & Cober Industries. Jonathan's company. Her eyes scanned the words, and she froze. Offer of employment, full-time administrative assistant. Her hand trembled as she read the salary figure. More than enough to change her life. I don't understand, she whispered. Why me? Jonathan smiled, his eyes kind but firm. Because you earned it, Sarah. Yesterday I saw someone who refused to give up, even when life was unfair. I saw a mother who taught her child gratitude when she had every reason to be bitter. That kind of strength, that's exactly what my company needs. Tears welled up in her eyes. You don't have to do this, I know, he interrupted softly. But I want to. She covered her mouth, trying to hold back sobs. You've already done so much. You gave us a Thanksgiving we'll never forget. Jonathan shook his head. You gave us something too, a reminder of what really matters. My son will never forget yesterday, Sarah. Neither will I. At that moment, Eli ran up to his father, holding a small paper turkey Lily had given him. Dad, look what she made for me. Jonathan laughed, ruffling his hair. Looks like we've got a new Thanksgiving tradition. Sarah smiled through tears. You've given us more than a job, Jonathan. You've given us hope. He extended his hand, not as a CEO, but as a friend. Then promise me something. When you're in a position to help someone else one day, you'll do the same. She nodded firmly, gripping his hand. I will, I promise. As Jonathan and Eli walked back to their car, Sarah stood in the doorway, clutching the letter to her chest. The cold wind brushed her face, but she didn't shiver, because inside her, something had changed forever. Later that evening, she placed the letter in a frame beside Lily's drawing on the kitchen wall. It wasn't just paper. It was a symbol of faith restored, of kindness passed forward. Lily climbed onto her lap, resting her head on her shoulder. Mommy, she whispered, are we rich now? Sarah smiled and kissed her forehead. We're richer than we've ever been, sweetheart, because someone believed in us. Outside, the town was quiet, but inside that small home, love, gratitude, and new beginnings glowed brighter than ever. And from that Thanksgiving on, Sarah made sure no one in her neighborhood ever spent the holiday alone again.